Welcome to Diplomacy Today, a podcast series by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. This is a new platform where we will discuss Pakistan's diplomacy, its relations with countries around the world, and the crucial role that Pakistani diplomats play in Pakistan's diplomacy. I'm your host, Mumtaz Zahra Baloch, spokesperson, Ministry of Foreign Affairs. And today it is my great honor to begin our podcast series with the 31st Foreign Secretary of Pakistan, Ambassador Asad Majeed Khan. Dr. Asad Majeed Khan has recently retired from government service after 35 years in the Foreign Service of Pakistan. He served as Pakistan's ambassador to Japan, to the United States and the European Union. And he also served as Pakistan's Foreign Secretary. Welcome, Dr. Asad Majeed Khan.
Thank you very much, Mumtaz, for having me. It's such a pleasure and certainly an honor to be one of the first guests to your podcast series.
Perhaps this is your first interview after your retirement?
It is, certainly.
You are a lawyer by profession, and I understand you also practiced law for some time. What made you switch careers and join the Foreign Service of Pakistan?
I think it was in some ways when I look back and reflect on what made me choose. I think being from a lower middle class family, proving yourself and improving yourself as early as you can is something which is attached high importance by all young people. So CSS was one of those exams which was considered very exclusive, very competitive. And I wanted to basically prove myself, but that was just one part of it. Since I started my career as an attorney, so choice for me was to either represent individual clients or to represent my country. I thought that there is no other better privilege, there is no other more important job than to represent your country and to carry your country's brief. So this is how I actually, after starting as an attorney, I chose to join the Ministry of Foreign Affairs.
So these 36 years, did you ever have any regrets?
Oh, absolutely not. Mm-hmm. Absolutely not. I think it's been a rewarding career personally for me. It's been also a great opportunity to serve my country. And I think that is what distinguishes Foreign Service from perhaps all other professional groups in the federal system, because I think based on my 35 years in the service, I can tell you that it is not really the classical service that the concept or the notion that comes to one's mind, it is actually a profession where you basically through your hard work can create space for yourself. You can build your own specialization and in the process serve your country also effectively and usefully.
You mentioned that this is not a profession like others.
Career service like others.
Not service like others.
Yes.
But there is a deal of glamour attached to it for people who are outside. Mm-hmm. And yet there are good postings and bad postings and postings in war zones and difficult stations. Can you give us a clear picture on the kind of career that one has in the foreign
I
service?
think that's again a very important dimension of serving as a career foreign service officer, because traveling overseas indeed is glamorous if you are doing it only for a brief while, or if you are only doing it for one stint overseas. When it becomes your lifestyle and it becomes a deal for life, then moving away from your family, from your friends, from your country for a long period of time, and then moving from one continent to another continent, from one system to another system, it takes a toll. It takes a toll on you, it takes a toll on your family, and sometimes more on your family than because you chose this service because you wanted to be in this service. Families sometimes don't, particularly the kids. So, overall that glamour goes away, and you have to make those difficult choices, difficult adjustments. You don't always get assigned or posted to English-speaking countries, so going to, or you don't always get assigned to so-called easy stations, which are mostly in the first world, but you can also get assigned to difficult stations, both from personal living perspective, also from security perspective. So, and therefore it takes it's a emotional drain, and I have always maintained this in interacting with younger officers, and even in terms of picking up officers, suitable officers for the Foreign Service of Pakistan. You really have to be doubly robust in terms of your psycho-emotional composition, because the kind of stresses, because here in Pakistan you can take it out. You have your friends, you have your families, you have multiple layers where you can take out your stress. But when you are in missions, particularly when it is a two-man mission, it can actually, and if you are not getting along well with your boss, or you are the boss and you are not getting,
that's challenging.
that could be actually. And so over the years I have seen that people who were of weak psycho-emotional composition suffered, and then their families also suffered. So that way, I mean, to put it briefly, I think it's really not as glamorous as it is believed to be if you are in it for a lifetime commitment.
So for you, the journey started with Japan.
Yes.
You did your language training, your posting, and then you became ambassador in Japan. So you have this special relationship with Japan. Please tell us how important the language training is for any diplomat, and the expertise that it gives any individual when they are pursuing a career in foreign service.
Indeed, I think I would say the ultimate romance in the foreign service really is to go back to the place where you started your career as ambassador. So for me, obviously, I started my career in Japan. So to go back to the same place where I served as third secretary to serve as ambassador was certainly very, very satisfying. And then at the same time, I think, to go back to a place where you can also speak the language, and if it is not one of those mainstream languages that actually gives you an edge in terms of every other ambassador or every other diplomat working in that country, because the local, your hosts see you and your proficiency in the language as an expression of your interest in that country, your interest in that society.
And understanding their culture.
And of course, it makes a difference. And I think during my time, one important practice that was introduced by the Prime Minister of Japan, actually Prime Minister Abe, late Prime Minister Abe, was to invite all the Japanese-speaking ambassadors for an exclusive lunch. So I've had the privilege of at least having 2 lunches with late Prime Minister. And also in your interactions with the corporate elite, with the political elite, which in many cases do not speak English language or are not that proficient, So knowing the language, and I think that's frankly our comparative advantage in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, because if we all have to conduct diplomacy in international language, English, French, or then for us who spent a lifetime in this ministry or in this profession, knowing a language, and when we say knowing a language, it is much more than the language, It is knowing that country, the economy, the history, the culture, how it works or how it doesn't work. So that way, I actually experienced Japan as a student, as a language trainee. I experienced Japan as a young diplomat. I experienced Japan as a student in a university, one of their premier universities. I did my PhD from Japan. So I have seen Japan all different angles, and that I think made me perhaps more effective. I was the first Japanese speaking ambassador in Tokyo of Pakistan, which again was a singular honor. And since then, the 2 ambassadors that have followed are also Japanese speaking. So I think that's the kind of connection that we need to have. So for me, going back to Japan was a dream coming true. And I think I made the best use of the time I had in Japan.
Moving on to international politics, and you have a deep insight on the global geopolitical developments around us. What do you think are the biggest challenges that Pakistan faces in the contemporary international politics, and especially in our region?
Really, I think for us, the challenge perhaps is more internal than external right now. Simply speaking, you can't really have a coherent foreign policy if you do not have coherence within your society and country. And economic stability gives your diplomat the kind of space that they need to meaningfully and effectively interact with their counterparts from different countries. So I think are really creating more coherence, having a better and more effective governance would create that space. Now, having said that, obviously, I mean, there are the international geopolitical environment is in deep flux. The China-US rivalry and escalation is a challenge which is faced by many countries, particularly middle powers like Pakistan. And for Pakistan, it becomes even more complex because these are 2 countries with whom we have had very good and historically deep ties, So maintaining balance, I would say, is a challenge, although not specific to Pakistani diplomats, but in some ways, given the kind of region that we have, the kind of conflict and instability that we have seen in our neighborhood, and some of the more recent developments in the Middle East, I think, makes diplomacy more challenging, particularly for our diplomats.
And do you think Pakistan's diplomats are ready to respond to this challenge?
Pakistan's diplomats, and I would say that an important measure or yardstick of assessing a country's diplomacy really is the multilateral arena, and be that New York, be that Geneva, be that Nairobi, be that Bangkok. and in multilateral diplomacy, because in that arena it is easier to make comparisons, because what we do bilaterally is something that is felt, seen and assessed only by the country that you are dealing with. In the multilateral arena, everybody can see which mission is performing how, and it's almost a well-established fact. In New York, in Geneva, and in some of the other hardcore multilateral missions, including Vienna and others, Pakistani diplomats have always carried themselves and their briefs very, very well. So our diplomacy, I think, has acquitted itself quite honorably, quite effectively over the years, despite the constraints and the challenges, and that makes that performance, I would say, even more impressive.
Mm-hmm. Another important area of Pakistan's foreign policy priorities is trade and regional connectivity. You have often said that this is an ECO moment. What do you exactly mean by ECO moment, and how do you see regional connectivity bring dividends for Pakistan and countries in the region?
If you look at Pakistan's external trade relations, if you look at Pakistan's membership of various regional groupings, unfortunately, SAARC is dysfunctional. I don't see that gaining pace or momentum anytime soon. Though we have SAFTA, the South Asian Free Trade Agreement, but we really don't have any substantial trade going on. So, and not just that, with the kind of geopolitical changes that we spoke of earlier during this conversation, with China emerging as one of the major global trade players, with the rapprochement between Iran and Saudi Arabia taking place, with Turkey also doing very well economically, so RCD was something that we created almost more than 50 years ago.
Yeah.
So, and ASEAN, which was created actually a couple of years later, is today now a phenomenal regional grouping. So in that way, with the important Central Asian republics having emerged and having been added to the erstwhile RCD, and our need and desire to regionally integrate through trade and other communication channels with Central Asia, with Eurasia, that's why I believe that this is the ECO moment. Because the landlocked Central Asia would need an outlet through Iran, through Pakistan, or through both. And building these connectivity, this regional connectivity can bring dividends not just for Pakistan but for the whole region. So that's why I believe that this is time that Pakistan actively works to put new life, to inject new life into ECO, and to use it as the platform to expand our trade with our immediate neighbors and the extended neighbors.
And ECO and CPEC, they're both connectivity driven. So you think there is some possibility of synergy between these two?
Not actually, not just I would say CPEC and ECO, but SCO also is an organization that Pakistan has joined. It includes important countries, countries that are part of our region also, and greater coordination, collaboration, not just EU and ECO and other regional organizations also, I think would get us the kind of closer regional integration that we want to see. And I think peace in Afghanistan, if things continue to move in the right direction, gives us even greater hope that this is a window that we have not been able to tap effectively because of, unfortunately, conflict and instability in Afghanistan. And if things start to roll other way, then ECO's real potential and South Asia's wider integration with the Eurasian landmass can be achieved.
So do you think in this context that the Ministry of Foreign Affairs is equipped to play an effective role in economic diplomacy? Because frankly speaking, we are not trained in economic diplomacy as much as our colleagues in Ministry of Commerce and other departments would be. So do you think there is a need for some kind of structural reforms in this ministry, or some kind of effective training of our diplomats so that we are ready to perform these roles in economic diplomacy?
First of all, I think we need reform. We need a broader, more sweeping, fundamental civil service reform in this country. Because of the dysfunctionality that we see, the lack of coherence and coordination and excessive tough competition that we see, and then lack of specialization also. So I think reform, not just this ministry but across the board, is needed in the civil service. For the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, again, as I said earlier, it's really not just a question of looking at it from the perspective of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. It is really a question of looking at it from the perspective of the government of Pakistan and how effective we are in kind of recognizing and identifying our strengths, which we can then in the process of negotiations use as a quid pro quo to either get favors or give favors, and that's where the whole system has to come together.
So moving on to your time as the Foreign Secretary of Pakistan, what are some of the key achievements or milestones that you are very proud of during the short stint that you had as Foreign Secretary of Pakistan, which I must say was very accomplished, but what are you
I'll leave that for others to judge in terms of how I perform as Foreign Secretary, but I think what I can tell you candidly is this need to have a better work-life balance in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, for the simple reason that we operate, with our missions spread all over the world. We and our senior officers have to deal with different time zones, and then sometimes the need, the urgency to respond to situations would demand you to work odd hours, off hours, holidays. So that was something that I had seen over the years lacking in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. So I tried to the extent that I could, through my own example, set this tradition of giving officers weekends off, not to bother them unless absolutely essential. So that work-life balance, I would say, I don't know, those of you who were on the receiving end, how you assess and evaluate that, and that's why I said I leave it to my colleagues to comment. Similarly, bringing the training of the younger officers up to speed with the current contemporary requirements, and for that creating greater and more interaction between the ministry and the Foreign Services Academy. It was something that I think, and having the board convene after a very long time, and then to basically working with the Director General of the Academy, closely to have the curriculum revised to essentially equip our younger officers with the skills and tools that they need. I think these are kind of, and of course it's not, I think I was lucky to have been assisted by a team of outstanding professionals, at all levels, and we worked as a team, and I think we were able to make some difference.
One achievement or one important milestone that you forgot to mention was the reintroduction of collegiality in decision making. And maybe you would like to say something about that.
No, I think that's because obviously, for equals, but you have additional secretaries who have served as ambassadors, who have spent on average about 25 years in the foreign service, bring a lot of experience and regional territorial expertise. So not to tap into their expertise, I would say, is not doing justice to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. So what we did was to basically institutionalize and more closely consult the senior officers on all issues of importance, with the ministers also in attendance, and that gave them the ownership. I think the broader buy-in also, and as you rightly put it, collegiality, because that's very, very important. Because unless and until I see and feel that I'm being heard and my voice is being heard and my inputs are being valued, I think that helps to improve the efficiency and effectiveness of the ministry.
Can you offer some advice to aspiring diplomats and foreign service officers who would like to follow your footsteps and join this service?
Just come over. This is, if I have to redo it 4 times, I would still want to pursue this career. I can say this without absolutely no reservation. This is a career, as I said, that gives you this opportunity to serve your country and then to also improve your own self. So that way, there are challenges also in this career, in this profession, but signing on as a professional diplomat is an honor, I would say, for anyone. It is a profession which is very different from all other services in Pakistan, and this is a career that requires some of the best and brightest, because when you go out, you actually rub shoulders with some of the best and brightest around the world. So we need to put our best foot forward, and that's why we need to have the best and brightest in this career.
Lastly, transitioning from a career in foreign service to retirement is a significant change in your life. How are you transitioning, and how is the life after retirement, and what are your plans for the future?
Well, I've been saying throughout, this is not a routine, conventional government service where you depreciate with time and you get to a point where your book value is 0 because you've retired. Since I see this and believe this to be a profession, and professions and professionals only get appreciated with time, So for me, this was the end of the first cycle of my career, and then I've stepped into the second cycle of life and of my career, which I look forward to making more productive and rewarding and satisfying for myself, because now I have the opportunity of doing things that I always wanted to do. So I certainly am not looking forward to a retired life. Although right now, because the practice in this ministry is to give the retired foreign secretaries some cooling off period, so I'm using that to build my own house. As soon as I'm done, I'm certainly going to busy myself in giving back, frankly, because I think that's what the younger generation deserves to have from us, who have benefited from the experience that we have achieved by serving Pakistan. So we need to share it, we need to pass it on to the next generation. So I'll do it. I am doing it in some ways, but I'll probably do it more aggressively as time passes by.
Any plans to write your memoirs or pen a book?
Well, ideally, yes, why not? Because I think that's a good way of documenting your legacy and then passing it on to the future generations. So, but sometimes, writing a book can also create controversy. So I'm going to be balancing, or at least trying to see the so-called law we call the balance of convenience. So which way it tilts.
I'm sure many Pakistanis would be interested in your memoirs, especially the last few years of your career, especially as the Foreign Secretary. So thank you, Ambassador Asad Majeed Khan, for joining us on Diplomacy Today. This was our first episode of Diplomacy Today. We will be having guests in coming episodes, Pakistani diplomats, academia, and opinion makers with whom we will be having conversations on Pakistan's foreign policy, Pakistan's diplomacy, and the important role that Pakistani diplomats play in protecting and projecting Pakistan's interests